I have no idea how this bike is going to look with my idea on the paint job. So watch the website, and hopefully it'll be on there. Like I say, I'm just kind of videoing as I go, and I think it's going to be cool, but we'll see. So anyway, what I'm going to use is this Modern Masters rust. Now what I'm going to do on that, I'm going to put a band of rust across the bike here. And then the rest of the bike I want to do in the red engine enamel. They say the engine enamel is less apt to peel or wrinkle if you spill gas on it. And then the polyurethane finish that we're going to put on the rust should resist the gas also. And that's why I like this band here, because if you spill a bit of gas, you still want to wipe it off. But at least it won't eat it up and look terrible, because it's going to be pretty salty looking through there anyway. So anyway, let's get started. The first thing, oh, and by the way, we'll have a list of all the stuff that you'll need on our website if you want to try to attempt this type of a paint job. Okay, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take some 220 sandpaper and on a sanding block. What we need to do, we need to feather this, the edges of this Virago or V-Star or whatever decal, because it's clear coated over the top, but there's still a little edge there that we kind of want to get rid of. So what we want to do, we want to just sand this, just keep sanding. And then what you're striving for is to get rid of, there's a little black line there. Once you get that glossy black line out of there and you can feel it, you should be about right. This, the rust paint is pretty thick and gnarly, so a little bit of an edge there won't matter, but we want to get rid of the bulk of that edge first. So go ahead and sand that and get rid of all those lines. If you go too carried away, you might start sanding into the decal. You don't want to do that. So let's do that, and then we'll do both sides, and then we'll continue on. The next step on our paint job is to go over the whole tank with like a Scotch-Brite pad or fine sandpaper. I like the Scotch-Brite because it's just easier and it fits the contour of the curves. And then one thing I did, I found out one thing. There was this rubber washer back here in the back. Make sure you put that in the plastic bag with the rest of the stuff. I think I've got the tape in about the right spots on both sides. I'll walk around and show you. Well, make sure you iron them really well down on these creases down here too. I think both sides match pretty closely. I mean, when you get finished, you can't see both sides anyway at the same time, so I think it'll be really cool. And then what we're going to do, we're going to paint this with the rust paint, and then when we're all finished with the red and the rust, we're going to go around this seam with some silver striping tape. So if things aren't absolutely perfect, we can straighten things out a little bit at that time. I'm going to get different widths of silver tape so we can experiment to see which one the width is the best. I think we're ready to rust this bad boy up. Okay, there's a tape called fine line masking tape, and basically what it is just electrical tape. It just bends around better. It's made out of plastic, and it's just made to go around curves. So you could either use the fine line masking tape or maybe electrical tape on this, because it does bend easier. So anyway, what I did is I kind of stood back and I kind of eyeballed this with the tank on the bike, and I tried to get the stripe, the big wide stripe, fairly even and at a good angle. You can do this yourself pretty easily. Now walk around the bike and look at it at all different angles and make sure it's what you want. I just did the one side for now, and then what I'm going to do, I'm going to probably take the tank off and do the other side while it's on a bench. So I think that's going to look pretty cool, because that big stripe's going to be the rust, and it's going to have a decal across it with silver stripes on the edges, and then the rest of it will be the red. So I think it's going to look cool. Okay, make sure that this area is nice and clean. Wipe it off with some acetone or lacquer thinner or something, so that it's nice and clean so the paint will stick. And then what we want to do, I'm going to go ahead and just squeeze this on with the primer. This is the primer, by the way. I'm just going to squeeze it on with a bottle and then start rolling and brushing, because a brush will leave brush strokes, and we don't want to spray it or anything like that. That's too complicated. So what we'll do, we'll just kind of brush this around here first. And then we'll continue to roll it on. Try to get as even as possible. Modern Masters suggests 2 coats of primer, but I think 1 coat will be plenty because we don't want to get too much buildup on this seam or we're going to have like a ridge. So go ahead and primer this all in really nice and smooth as you can, and then we'll let it dry, and then we'll start putting the rust paint on. I'm just about finished. Just really light pressure when you get to these slick areas, and that way it'll get the same little bumps all the way through. Won't get those skid marks on there. That looks pretty nice. Let's let this dry. The nice thing about this Modern Masters rust paint, all of these all the paints are water-based. So let's go clean this out really well in the sink, and then we'll wait for this to dry a little bit, and then we'll put the rust paint on. Okay, I've let this dry overnight, and now today is the day we're going to put the iron paint on. This is it. Make sure you shake this up really well. Maybe even put a little teeny screwdriver in the bottom and stir it, because this has particles of iron in it, and you want to make sure it's mixed in the paint really well. So make sure you shake it really well, even as you go. And then the other thing I'm going to do is put the brush and the roller in a plastic bag in between coats. That way you don't have to clean the roller out each time in between coats, because that wastes a lot of this paint. Okay, so let's go ahead and start putting the rust paint on this. If you'll notice, I'm tipping the paint, the tank up, and tipping it on the back end or the front up in here. Don't tip it clear upside down, because there might be a little bit of gas still left in the tank, and you don't want to leak out here and ruin your paint job. So just kind of tip it up front, or you can roll it around on this back front edge if you lift the back. Then I just use the brush to brush here. Then y'all continue to roll the rest of it. Okay, we've got the first coat on, and we're going to let that dry. Let it dry really well before we do the next coat, because you don't want it to lift any of the paint up. And then in between, I'm just going to leave the roller and the brush, kind of seal it in the bag like that. That way you won't waste all that paint. I bet in about an hour we can recoat this. Okay, I put 3 coats of the rust paint on the tank. I put an extra coat on there just to make sure it's sealed really well. And then what I've done here is I've taken some newsprint. You can use newspaper or newsprint like this, and put a piece of masking tape along here. Then we'll peel this off. And I'm going to mask this off on both sides, so that when we clear coat it and then we put the activator on there, it won't affect the black paint. Okay, this is the rust activator that you use. I've put 2 coats on already, so I'm going to spray the 3rd coat on. Just 2 kind of light coats. I'm not going to let it drip. I guess you could do that and let it kind of drip and get a different effect. I've done that in the past, but I'm going to just put 1 more real light coat on here. I'll do the sides, and then I'll be back. We're going to go to a movie, and then I'm going to come back and we'll check it out. And voila, look at that rust. This is, I let it sit for about a full day before I'm going to clear coat this, because I wanted to make sure that it rusted completely, because I think the rusting process actually takes a day or 2 to get complete, so it doesn't hurt to let it sit for a while. Okay, so anyway, what we want to do now, we have to protect this surface because it kind of rubs off a little bit. And the best thing to use if you want to maintain this rusty look is the water-based clear coat. Make sure you get the outdoor spar urethane clear coat. This is satin finish. You could get clear or flat, either one. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to spray a couple of light coats on here, and let's just check it out and see how it looks. Okay, if you'll notice the rust has kind of disappeared, but I'm almost positive it'll come back. That's why we use the water base. If you use the oil base, then it'll stay like that. So you probably want to make sure you use the water base if you want that rust to come back out again.